My best friend, who was also my chief bridesmaid, slept with my husband 2 weeks after our wedding. They even made a whole tape of everything. They will regret ever knowing me. I will destroy them. Hi, I'm Clara. I just turned 30, and I work as a technical editor. It's kind of a boring job, mostly checking documents for a big software firm. But I'm good at details. The kind of details that save companies from legal trouble. That attention to detail is the only reason I survived what happened next. My life was finally perfect. I had the dream wedding, the beautiful house, and a husband I thought was my soulmate. I even had my best friend, Chloe, stand right next to me as my chief bridesmaid. That picture-perfect life lasted exactly 2 weeks. And then my attention to detail found the horrifying proof that they had already ruined everything. It was a Saturday afternoon, barely 14 days after I walked down the aisle to marry Owen. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The wedding was everything I had ever dreamed of. 150 guests, a dress that cost more than my first car, and a huge reception where Owen and I danced until our feet ached. Chloe, my best friend since high school, stood right next to me, holding my train, crying happy tears. She even gave a toast that made half the room tear up, calling us the perfect, meant-to-be couple. She said she loved us both. I was upstairs in our new house, finally getting around to backing up all the digital wedding photos and videos from Owen's laptop onto a shared cloud storage folder. He was downstairs watching a football game, loudly complaining to the TV about a bad call. Everything was perfectly normal. Everything was a lie. I clicked into the Owen Files section, which held his work papers and other documents. I was looking for a specific folder where he dumped the candid shots. But as I scrolled, a folder title caught my eye. It was labeled simply Project Alpha, Final. That wasn't a work project. Owen was in sales, not software. My chest went tight. Not from suspicion yet, but just confusion. I clicked it open. Inside, there was a single video file. The file name was a string of random numbers and letters. 84930 CL Owen v2.mp4. I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds, my finger hovering over the mouse. Curiosity, that sneaky little devil, won. I told myself it was probably just a weird client pitch or a file Owen needed to delete. The video started to play. The first thing I recognized was the quilt. It was the same bright, patterned quilt my mother had hand-sewn for us as a wedding gift. It was currently on the bed in our guest room. The second thing I recognized was the familiar laugh that bubbled out of the woman in the video. It wasn't me. It was Chloe. It took another 10 seconds for my brain to process the rest of the image. The person with her, the one whose back was to the camera, was undeniably Owen. His watch, the tattoo on his shoulder, the way he ran his hand through his hair, it was him, my husband. The wedding rings they wore flashed in the dim light of the room. The moment I saw the gold band on Chloe's hand, my wedding ring, which she wore because she was trying it on with her maid of honor dress 2 weeks ago, my breath just stopped. My whole body went cold, then hot, then completely numb. I watched the whole thing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even drop the laptop. It was like I was watching two strangers on a badly made home movie. When the video finally ended and the screen went black, I looked at the timestamp. October 14th. Our wedding was on September 30th. 2 weeks. They didn't even wait long enough for the thank you cards to be sent out. The vows, the expensive rings, the tears, they were all a joke, a stage setup for this. A laugh finally did escape me, but it was dry and brittle, like breaking glass. It wasn't a sound of sadness. It was the sound of a switch flipping inside my head. The raw, messy pain of betrayal wasn't what hit me first. It was a clear, cold focus. They thought they were clever, hiding the evidence on an encrypted cloud folder. But I was the one who managed the passwords and the backups. They had made a fatal mistake. They had left the proof in my hands. I took the laptop, carefully closed the video file, and then did something I never thought I was capable of. I copied the entire Project Alpha folder to a secure private drive. Then, I deleted it completely from the laptop and the cloud. I emptied the recycle bin on his desktop and cleared the browsing history. There would be no trace of my discovery. I walked downstairs, the weight of the new knowledge making every step deliberate. Owen was still shouting at the TV. He looked up when I entered the living room. "Hey babe, rough game. Did you find those photo files?" he asked, a completely relaxed and innocent smile on his face. I walked over to the sofa, leaned down, and kissed him on the forehead. The act was a performance, and I was giving the performance of my life. "Yes, all set up," I said, my voice steady. Maybe even a little cheerful. "I just finished backing up the main drive." "You have so much old work stuff, though. You should really organize that folder." Yeah, I know," he mumbled, turning his attention back to the screen. "I'll get to it. Client stuff." "Of course," I replied, moving into the kitchen. I didn't want to be in the same room as him, but I couldn't leave. Not yet. I had to watch him, study him, and let him believe he was safe. Later that evening, I called Chloe. My hands were shaking a little, but I told myself the fear was gone, replaced by necessary adrenaline. "Oh my God, Clara, how is married life?" Chloe chirped, her voice sounding sickeningly upbeat over the phone. "It's amazing, Chloe. Really, really good," I lied, pulling the word amazing from some deep, unused reserve of deceit. "We're thinking of taking that trip to the Berkshires next month. Owen mentioned you might be free. You could use a break." "Oh, that sounds lovely. Let me check my schedule. I'd love to come with you guys," she said, her voice full of false enthusiasm. She didn't hesitate. She didn't sound guilty. She just sounded like my friend. A terrifying thought occurred to me. How long had this been going on? Was it just the 2 weeks? Or had they been planning this even before the wedding? 2 weeks. The thought was a searing brand. I hung up, my stomach churning. They were not just lovers. They were arrogant fools who thought they were immune to discovery. They thought they could betray me, film it, and then share an innocent weekend getaway with me. I looked in the mirror, and the reflection that stared back wasn't the heartbroken bride I expected to see. It was a woman with eyes that were too bright, too focused. The game was on. They wanted to destroy my marriage. I would destroy their lives. My revenge had to be perfect. It couldn't be a simple divorce and screaming match. It had to be a masterpiece of justice. A slow, meticulous undoing that left them with nothing but the consequences of their own stupidity. I would need more evidence. I needed to know who else knew, and I needed to understand their financial and professional vulnerabilities. The first step was becoming the perfect wife again. The second was becoming a perfect spy. The third step would be the end game. And I had all the time in the world. I just needed to act the part. My sweet, naive Clara was gone. A cold, calculating woman had taken her place. The clock was ticking, but this time, it was counting down to their destruction. The days that followed felt like wading through thick, icy water. Every time Owen smiled at me, every time Chloe texted me a heart emoji, I had to swallow the scream building in my throat and replace it with a genuine-sounding laugh. It was exhausting, but the performance was crucial. The happier I seemed, the more comfortable and careless they would become. My new life became a double existence. By day, I was Clara, the devoted wife, unpacking wedding gifts, cooking his favorite meals, and asking Owen about his stressful meetings. By night, I was a silent investigator. Owen's work laptop was the gold mine. Since he worked in sales for a mid-sized tech company, a lot of his business was handled through emails and shared company documents. I knew all his passwords, easy, predictable things like old pet names and birthdays. While he was at the gym or asleep, I was on his computer, searching. I didn't need to find more tapes. The first one was enough for the divorce court. I needed to destroy their futures, not just our past. I found the first thread in his email archive. Owen had a side hustle, a small, highly unauthorized business, where he was selling client lists and technical information to a smaller rival company. It wasn't just unethical, it was illegal and a direct violation of his employment contract. He'd labeled the emails with innocent names like Golf Weekend and Fantasy League Draft, but the attached files were clear, spreadsheets full of proprietary data. The anxiety about this little operation explained why he was so obsessed with cleaning his cloud drive. He wasn't hiding his affair from me. He was hiding a potential felony from his employer. This was perfect. The video showed his moral bankruptcy. These emails showed his criminal one. I downloaded everything, saving copies to my secure external drive, careful to leave no digital footprint behind. Next was Chloe. She worked as an event planner for high-end corporate clients. Her career was everything to her. I needed to find her weakness. I called her again, still playing the role of the excited new bride, planning her life. "Chloe, about that trip to the Berkshires," I said Tuesday evening while Owen was in the garage. "I'm looking at these little cabin rentals, and they are so cute, but they are expensive. How's the budget looking on your end?" "Oh, don't worry about me, Clara. Things are going great at work. Just landed a massive new contract with that pharmaceutical company, PharmTech. The deposit alone pays for 3 Berkshires trips," she boasted. PharmTech. A name like that sounded important. "Wow, that's amazing. You deserve it. I always said you were the best planner," I gushed. "Well, it's all about connections," she replied, a little smugness creeping into her voice. That night, I spent hours researching PharmTech. They were a huge, publicly traded corporation, and Chloe had just landed their annual gala and conference. The contract was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, her biggest win ever. The faster she climbed, the harder she would fall. The next time Chloe came over, she was bringing a bottle of wine, a gesture to celebrate my supposed 2 weeks of marital bliss. She sat on the sofa, talking excitedly about the gala plans. I watched her closely. She fidgeted a little, but her eyes held no guilt, only excitement about her new job and the bottle of wine. I realized the chilling truth. She genuinely didn't care about the damage she had done to me. She only cared about herself. While she was in the powder room, I managed a quick, silent raid on her purse, grabbing her work phone. I knew the 4-digit PIN because she used the same one for everything. Her birth year. I scrolled quickly through her recent calls, nothing linking her to Owen immediately, as they were probably too smart for that. But in her notes app, she had a meticulous list of all her project finances. Under the PharmTech header, there was a tiny note that sent a jolt through me. "Need to cover $15,000 discrepancy on vendor payment for Q3. Ask TB to hold the invoice until Q1. A $15,000 discrepancy. That sounded like she was hiding a significant cost overrun, or worse, diverting funds. Her career was built on trust and financial transparency. This was another vulnerability. I took quick photos of the notes with my own phone and slipped her phone back into her purse exactly as I found it. It took less than 40 seconds. When Chloe returned, she looked pleased. You look so relaxed, Clara. Marriage really suits you, she said, sipping her wine. It does. Doesn't it? I have a wonderful husband and the best friend in the world, I replied, making sure the words felt like broken glass on my tongue. Over the next few weeks, I intensified my efforts. I set up anonymous alerts to monitor Owen's company news, looking for any sign of internal audit or financial instability. I started a detailed spreadsheet of all my findings. Target, Owen. Vulnerability, insider trading, client list theft, emails secured. Risk, immediate firing, possible criminal charges, loss of all severance/bonuses. Target, Chloe. Vulnerability, financial fraud, misappropriation of funds, $15,000 discrepancy, FimeTech contract. Risk, loss of biggest client, career ending, reputation damage. I realized that my best weapon wasn't the sex tape. It was their professional ambition. They might survive a scandal, but they would never survive being broke and blacklisted. One night, Owen came home from a business trip, a trip I now knew was just a euphemism for time spent with Chloe. He looked tired but satisfied. As he was getting ready for bed, I casually asked him about his future. Honey, are you happy at your job? We just bought this big house. I want to make sure we're secure, I asked, laying my head on his chest. The perfect picture of domestic concern. He pulled me close, sighing contentedly. Secure? Babe, we're golden. My boss is an idiot, and I'm about to close the biggest deal of the quarter. Nothing can touch us. Nothing. That sentence, nothing can touch us, sealed their fate. He was so confident, so arrogant in his deception. He had no idea that I, the woman he thought was completely devoted and naive, was holding the entire foundation of his life in my hands. The time for gathering evidence was coming to an end. It was time to start setting the traps. I smiled into the dark, starting the traps. The first and most crucial meeting I took was with a divorce attorney recommended by a friend of a friend, someone who specialized in high-asset cases involving infidelity. His name was Mr. Harrison, a sharp man with tired, sympathetic eyes. I scheduled the consultation while Owen was on another business trip. I sat in his opulent, quiet office and laid out my evidence. I presented the video first. I didn't play it, just described its contents and provided the file location on my encrypted drive. Mr. Harrison watched me, his expression hardening with professional seriousness. Mrs. Hayes, he said, leaning back, with this evidence of marital misconduct, we can pursue an expedited and very favorable settlement for you. The emotional distress and the clear pattern of deceit are powerful leverage. I understand that, Mr. Harrison, I replied, keeping my voice level. However, I need you to hold this evidence for now. I don't want to file anything until I give the word. The video is for protection. The real leverage I want to use is financial and professional. I then pushed the second folder across the table, the neatly printed emails, detailing Owen's unauthorized sale of client data and proprietary information. Mr. Harrison slowly read through the printed communications, his eyebrows climbing higher with each page. This is a different matter entirely, he murmured. This is criminal exposure. This is enough to make his company terminate his contract immediately, claw back bonuses, and potentially file charges. Why wait to file the divorce? Because, I explained, meeting his gaze, I want him completely ruined before he sees the divorce papers. He thinks he's about to close the biggest deal of his career. I want him fired, broke, and publicly humiliated before he knows I've even hired you. I need the downfall to be immediate, undeniable, and impossible to recover from." Mr. Harrison stared at me for a long moment. A flicker of something like respect in his professional scrutiny. "Chloe is the event planner for a massive gala for a company called Farm Tech. That event is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. That will be the location of the final confrontation. We file the divorce the morning after the gala. I left Mr. Harrison's office with a plan. Wait 3 weeks. Prepare the final professional documents. In the meantime, I began transferring my half of our joint savings and consolidating all my personal investments into a separate, untraceable account, citing prudent financial planning to Owen when he eventually noticed. I was cleaning my slate before I detonated his. The next day, I started setting the first fuse. I drove 20 miles to a public library in a neighboring town, paying cash for parking and using a burner email address I created on a public computer terminal. I attached the most damning files, the spreadsheets, the communication with the rival company, and a summary of the proprietary theft, and composed a short, anonymous email. The recipient was the head of legal compliance at Owen's company, a name I found easily on LinkedIn. The subject line was concise: urgent, internal misconduct and IP theft, evidence attached. The content was clinical. Please review the attached documents detailing the unauthorized sale of proprietary client lists by your employee, Owen Hayes. Check his outgoing email archives for confirmation, labeled Golf Weekend Files. I sent the email, wiped the browser history, and walked out. The initial blast radius was set. I knew the wheels of a corporate investigation would turn quickly, especially when a major deal was about to close. Owen's world was already starting to crumble, and he was none the wiser. Next, I focused on Chloe and the Farm Tech Gala. It was her career masterpiece, the event she planned to use to solidify her reputation. I saw the date, Saturday, November 18th, on a promotional postcard she left carelessly on the kitchen counter. It was 3 weeks away. The clock was ticking, but for them, not for me. I found a lower-level finance contact at Farm Tech through an industry gossip forum, a woman named Denise, who seemed perpetually frustrated with budgetary overruns and lack of transparency. I sent a carefully worded message to Denise's corporate email, again from the anonymous, untraceable account. This time, the email was phrased as a concerned insider tip about a vendor. I didn't mention Chloe's name. I focused only on the money trail. The subject: possible Q3 financial misreporting, vendor invoice hold. The message: check the vendor invoices tied to the upcoming corporate gala project. There appears to be a systemic attempt to defer a large Q3 expense, approximately $15,000, to Q1 of next year, possibly involving a vendor with the initials TB, to artificially inflate Q3 profits. This issue falls under the responsibility of the current event planner. I suggest an immediate audit before the final payments are released. This planted the seed of professional destruction. It gave Farm Tech a financial reason to investigate, forcing them to look at the paperwork and find the discrepancy Chloe had hastily scribbled in her phone notes. My hands were clean. I was just a concerned citizen pointing out potential corporate fraud. I came home, found Owen watching the game, and brought him a cold beer. I sat beside him, nestled in, and watched his face. He was smiling, talking about his big client meeting on Monday. He looked at me with what he thought was love. What I saw was a man standing on a trapdoor. Completely unaware, I held the release cord. I spent the next 3 weeks being the perfect, devoted wife. I even helped Chloe pick out a new dress for the gala, urging her toward the expensive, shimmering one. It needed to be a dress that would stand out in the photographs. the photographs of her public ruin. It was a Thursday morning, less than 2 weeks before the gala. I was enjoying a cup of coffee when Owen walked through the front door at 10 a.m. He wasn't supposed to be home. The sound of the door slamming shut made me jump. He was pale, his tie was loose, and the usual cocky set of his shoulders was gone. "Owen, what are you doing home?" I asked, standing up, putting on my best look of shocked concern. He didn't speak immediately. He just threw his briefcase onto the sofa with a deafening thud. "They fired me, Clara. They actually fired me." I walked towards him, pretending to be stunned. "Fired? Why? What happened to the big deal you were closing?" "The deal is dead. Completely dead," he spat, running his hands through his hair. "Some anonymous email, some phantom tip went to compliance. They said they found proof of client list theft, my email archives, my golf weekend files. They found everything. The spreadsheets, the communications. They even accused me of trying to start a rival business. It's insane. I lost everything." He looked utterly defeated, and for the first time, a small, satisfying chill went down my spine. The trap had worked. "But Owen, you wouldn't do something like that. That's illegal. Who would report you?" I pulled him into a hug, feeling his anger and confusion radiating off him. The physical contact was repulsive, but essential to maintain my cover. "I don't know. A rival? Someone jealous. They didn't even give me a chance to explain. They walked me out with security. And the worst part," he pulled away, his eyes wide with a new kind of panic. "They said all my bonuses are being clawed back. The company car is gone. And our joint account? It's basically empty now. We spent so much on the wedding, and now this house. We're screwed, Clara." "The account isn't empty, Owen," I said softly, giving him the truth I knew he couldn't process right now. "I moved most of the savings into my personal investment portfolio a few weeks ago, just as a security measure. Remember? We talked about balancing our exposure. We'll be okay for now." This unexpected piece of good news seemed to deflate him slightly, turning his rage into dependency. He leaned on me, relieved he hadn't completely bankrupted us. He had no idea I had protected my future, not ours. While Owen descended into a self-pitying cycle of daytime drinking and furious, unsuccessful phone calls to lawyers, the second fuse was burning toward Chloe. She called me 2 days later. She didn't sound upbeat or smug. She sounded terrified. "Clara, something is going wrong with FarmTech," she whispered, the anxiety clear in her voice. "They've brought in an internal auditor, a woman named Denise, who is tearing apart the vendor receipts to the gala. She's asking about every single payment, especially one small outstanding invoice from a lighting vendor, TB. I frowned into the phone. "TB, who is that? What's the issue?" "It's nothing, honestly. Just a small miscalculation that needed to be pushed to next quarter. Totally normal accounting practice. But this auditor is acting like I'm cooking the books. She's threatening to shut down my access until the paper trail is perfectly clear." "That sounds awful, but you're the best. Just show them the documents. You're completely honest, right?" I pressed, loving the sound of her fear. She was crumbling under the smallest bit of scrutiny. "Yes, of course, I am," she insisted, too quickly. "It's just this contract is massive. If I lose FarmTech, my reputation is toast. My entire portfolio depends on this gala going perfectly. I need this win, Clara. I know, honey. It will be fine. Just focus on making the gala spectacular. It's only a week away." I comforted her, the image of her shimmering gown, expensive venue filling my mind. The spectacular ruin. The pieces were perfectly aligned. Owen was disgraced and jobless, dependent on me, and too preoccupied with his own professional disaster to notice the fault lines in our marriage. Chloe was hanging onto her career by a thread, desperate for the gala to proceed without issue. Pause. I used my final week preparing for my own appearance. I didn't just want to arrive. I wanted to make a statement. I chose an elegant, deep sapphire dress, a color that suggested calm and wealth, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos I felt and the ruin I was about to unleash. I had a final meeting with Mr. Harrison 2 days before the gala. The professional hit has landed, I told him calmly. He is fired and facing potential legal trouble, which significantly increases his motivation to settle fast and quietly to protect his future. I want the divorce papers served immediately after the gala. Have the papers and the service ready for Sunday morning. Done, Mr. Harrison confirmed. And the tape? The tape stays put. It's the final nail in the coffin if he fights the settlement. He won't, once he realizes I had the power to destroy him professionally. But I want the option to use it if necessary. They deserve to know I knew everything, but only after they've lost everything else. The night of the gala arrived. Owen, moody and resentful about having to attend a major corporate event now that he was unemployed, nevertheless agreed to come. He needed to network. He needed to save face. He needed me. As we drove toward the Grand Hotel ballroom, I took his hand. He gave it a weak squeeze. He had no idea this was our last car ride together as husband and wife, and that the person holding his hand was the architect of his total collapse. The sheer joy of holding that secret power, of seeing the finish line after weeks of performance, was intoxicating. It was time for the curtain to rise. The ballroom was stunning. Chloe had done a magnificent job. Chandeliers glittered, the tables were set with enormous floral arrangements, and hundreds of powerful people in elegant gowns and tuxedos mingled. It was the perfect stage for a spectacular fall. We found Chloe immediately. She was a vision in her expensive, shimmering dress, her eyes wide and nervously scanning the room. She was wearing her forced, professional smile, but I could see the sweat on her brow. The audit was weighing on her. "Clara, Owen, you made it," she chirped, kissing me quickly on the cheek. Her perfume was overwhelming. "The place looks incredible, Chloe. Truly a career high for you," I said, leaning in. The irony in my voice was hidden by my own dazzling smile. Owen, miserable, immediately tried to network, approaching a former colleague with a strained, jovial air. I watched him go, then turned my full attention to Chloe, who was nervously checking her phone. "Are you okay? You look a little stressed," I asked, pouring myself a glass of champagne. "Just last-minute details," she muttered. "That auditor, Denise, is here. She's being a nightmare about the TB invoice. I just need to get through the opening speech, and then I can relax." The opening speeches began. The CEO of FarmTech took the stage, thanking everyone for their contributions. Chloe stood by the side, radiant and tense, waiting for her moment to be introduced as the lead event planner. Suddenly, a woman in a severe black suit, it had to be Denise, the auditor, walked up to Chloe and spoke sharply into her ear. Chloe's face went white. She grabbed the auditor's arm, pulling her toward a corner, desperately pleading. But it was too late. The CEO paused his speech, looking confusedly toward the commotion. Denise, the auditor, walked directly to the CEO, handed him a file, and spoke in a clear, loud voice that carried across the hushed room, even without a microphone. "Sir, I apologize for the interruption, but our internal audit has uncovered significant irregularities regarding misappropriation of vendor funds for this event. The event planner, Ms. Finch, has been suspended immediately, pending a full investigation into fraud and invoice tampering. Security will escort her out." Chaos erupted. People gasped and started whispering furiously. Chloe stood frozen, the shimmering dress now looking like a uniform of shame. 2 security guards appeared and approached her. "No, this is a mistake. Clara, tell them. Tell them it's a mistake," Chloe screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the crowd's murmurs. I didn't move. I simply watched as the guards put a hand on Chloe's arm and led her, crying and protesting, directly past me. She looked at me, her eyes begging for help, the eyes of the person who betrayed me. I took a slow sip of my champagne and gave her a small, controlled, chilling smile. It was the smile of a woman who had just won. Owen rushed over to me, having witnessed the spectacle. "My God, Clara, what a disaster for Chloe. Can you believe that? Her entire career is over." I knew she was a little flaky about money, but fraud? I feel so bad for her. He was so focused on the external drama, so relieved that the humiliation was happening to someone else, that he didn't see the danger in front of him. "You should, Owen," I said, putting down my glass. The noise of the crowd seemed distant now. It was just the 2 of us, standing in the eye of the storm. "Should what?" he asked, trying to steer me toward the exit, sensing the place was toxic for networking. I placed my hand on his chest, right over his heart, and looked him directly in the eye. "You should feel bad for her, because you're next." His smile vanished. "What are you talking about?" "The anonymous tip that got you fired last week. The one about your golf weekend files and the client list theft." I leaned in, my voice a soft, venomous whisper. "That tip came from me. I sent the emails to your compliance officer." He recoiled as if struck. You're lying. You're trying to make sense of all this. You can't be serious." "Oh, I am. I know everything, Owen. I've known since 2 weeks after our wedding. I know about the tape. I know about Chloe. I know you ruined our life for an ugly little secret that lasted about as long as a honeymoon." His face was a masterpiece of dawning horror, a mix of pure fear and disbelief. He started to shake, his professional composure utterly gone. "The tape? How? Chop. Where did you—" he stammered, looking around frantically for escape. "I found it. It's safe. It's evidence," I stated. "You see, you thought you were smart by hiding your crime. But when you hide a crime, you get careless about your sins. You were so busy saving your job from being audited that you never thought your wife might be auditing your life." He tried to grab my arm, desperation turning into anger. "Clara, please, we can fix this." "Don't do this to me. I'm already ruined." I pulled my arm away. "You ruined yourself. You destroyed our marriage and my trust for a quick role in a hotel room with my best friend. And now you've lost your job, you've lost your future, and tomorrow morning you will lose your wife. Mr. Harrison, my attorney, will be serving you divorce papers, citing your infidelity and, more importantly, your financial misconduct, which I will be using to secure a very favorable settlement. You have nothing left to fight with." I stepped back, allowing the full weight of the truth to crush him. He was standing in a room full of powerful people, completely alone, jobless, cheated by his lover, and betrayed by the woman he underestimated. "Enjoy your night, Owen," I said, my voice finally ringing with genuine, icy freedom. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. The feeling wasn't rage or sadness. It was a profound, cold sense of closure. My grief had transformed into justice, and justice had been served publicly and painfully. They would both regret ever knowing me, and now they finally did. The vows were broken, but my vengeance was complete. Click on the next story waiting for you on screen, because trust me, the betrayals only get darker from here.